So what I want to do is kind of walk you through the steps. It's somewhat complicated,
Mm-hmm.
but really it's just 3 steps. It just sometimes gets lost in translation.
Okay.
So the first step, there's kind of 2 front doors to the state of California in terms of classifications. One is called staff service analyst, which is someone who hasn't yet completed their bachelor's degree. And then there's the associate government program analyst for someone who has completed their bachelor's degree. And so it's kind of 2 entry points there, but there are thousands and thousands of different types of classifications that are very specialized, but these ones are kind of broad classifications and they fit for a lot of different kinds of jobs. And the state of California has like over 111 departments, but we all use the same classification structure.
Okay.
So how this works is when you apply for a job, the first thing they want to do is make sure that you have what's called minimum qualifications for any position. And they do that through an exam process. So they have you first take an exam. Sometimes they're self-certifications, sometimes they're math tests. It just depends on the classification, what the exam looks like. In the 2 that I'm going to show you today, well, which one are you interested in, the SSA or the AGPA? You have your degree?
Yes, I do have my bachelor's and a master's.
Okay, so you might qualify for much more. So, well, I'll show you the AGPA, which is the entry level, and then we can poke around and see what fits according to your specialization in your master's, okay?
Okay.
So the first step is taking an exam. So you'll see this little button says exam assessment search. So that's really where people are supposed to start. Well,
Okay.
let me back up. Where people really start is you should create an account or a login. So you come up here on the right, it says create account, login, and then you log in with your ID. And basically when you do that, it just has your information in here like a resume. And it tracks what's called the 627, or I'm sorry, 678, which is the standard application form. And then you can have different versions of it. You can upload your documents, you can answer your EEO questions, and then you can apply for jobs and assessments here. So you do an exam or an assessment first, and then you apply for the job.
Okay.
The first thing, just set up your profile. That way it's kind of like your online resume. You'll still be asked later to probably upload a resume and as one of the documents, but it's kind of the same thing. That form is more or less your resume. So let's go back to the home page. And what you'll do is you'll click exam. And since I asked you a clarifying question, the AGPA or the associate governmental, these are very long titles. That sometimes hide what the job is. But once you know, then you're associate AGPA, associate government program analyst. Now we hit search. Because I knew that name, I just saved you going through a big giant list of all these different classifications. I hope it will load here. There we go. So there are thousands of exams, but the one that we're looking for is called the Associate Governmental Program Analyst. This is the entry-level job for someone who's at least completed an MBA. This exam code, P9PB04, that will always reference back to the title, Associate Governmental Program Analyst. And so there are an endless list of various classifications that you can choose from, and you can browse them, but I'll start here just to explain the process. So when you click here, it opens up an exam posting and it tells you that the filing date is continuous, which means it's online and you can do this anytime. Some of them lock out. You can only do it once 6 months or once a year. It depends on the classification.
Okay.
It gives you the salary range. So someone who's entering the state and has never had a job with the state of California and was to get a position as an AGPA, they would start at the entry level. And then each year you get a merit salary adjustment until you reach the top of your range, in which people already promote. So in here, it has some information who should apply, and it says people who meet the minimum qualifications. And so this is the classification description. And if you click it, it will open a document that shows you what the job is about, like what the job does. So this person supports program evaluation, planning, policy analysis, formulation, systems development. Still, this gets very muddy because this is the classification definition and not the job definition. The job can vary by the different organizations.
Okay.
So you come down to the minimum qualifications, which is really why we're here, and to find out, do I qualify for this classification? And the answer is education equal to the equivalent to the graduation from college, which you have. And then the word and is here. And it says either one or two. So there's usually what's called a promotional pattern. So either one is 1 year experience as an SSAC. So that staff service analyst I mentioned before is promotional to this position. So there are 3 ranges in staff service analyst A, B, and C. So this is not your pattern because you don't currently work for the state, but if you were with the state as a staff service analyst, this could qualify you. Okay. The other is or 2. And the second pattern is experience. 3 years of professional analytical experience performing duties in one of the following. So if you have experience with budgets, management analysis, personnel, planning, program evaluation, or policy, these are big buckets of different types of things you may have worked for in your past. And if you feel that you have done that with at least 3 years, then you would be qualified, okay? And so then the knowledge, skills, and abilities are here, and then just any other personal remarks. So that kind of tells you where you are, and then you go back, okay? And so now we're back in this exam posting for AGPA. And when you look here, it says click on the link below. It's kind of hidden, but it's right here. Click here. And you click it, and it will actually open up the exam bulletin. Okay, so here's that exam code 9PB04, so we know we're doing the right thing. And then you come in here and it'll tell you the classification. If I click here, it's going to take me back to that page we just walked through. Okay. So a lot of this is circular. Once you've taken it, you can't take it again for 6 months. And then you just keep rolling down and it will tell you again the same thing we read before, minimum qualifications. Okay, and then we roll down and it kind of describes what the position is like and what types of jobs AGPAs can do. And then you're looking at the exam scope. So this is 100% weighted on the final score, and it's really just a training and experience evaluation. So you have to rank at least a 70 to be what's called list eligible, which means that you can apply for jobs. This will score almost immediately because it's an online exam. So the knowledge abilities, and it tells you what knowledge you need to have, what abilities you need to have, and then explains what list eligibility looks like, and you can stay on the list for up to a year. So let's say you started today, you were eligible, but you didn't get a job until next year. You would have to start over with another exam if it expires.
Okay.
So here it tells you what's going to be on the exam, your employment history. So basically you're going to have your resume with you, which includes your educational background and any training that you've done. And so you can click a preview of it, and then down here you can actually take the exam. So I'll show you the preview. Okay. It's just a self-assessment that they're going to ask you basically 28 questions. And they're going to ask you to rank yourself based on how much experience you had, 3 years or more, or 1 year to 2 years, or 0 to 6 months. You give yourself a different score on each one of these. And then you also answer the level at which you perform. So you were an expert and you trained others. You didn't practice that at all. And so the goal is to, of course, as many of these as you can, identify yourself as an expert or training others and having 3 or more years experience on these 28 tasks.
Okay.
So the more proficient you are, the higher your score is. And as long as you get over a 70%, you would be list eligible. You want to score as high as possible because this is a large classification. Tens of thousands of people are on the list. So you do want to get to the top so that you're competitive. But you can go through these and see like some of this stuff. It seems like that job's ambiguous when you start seeing like what they're asking you to do. You know, can you use email to communicate and schedule meetings? Are you complete and accurate with forms and documents? These are some very fundamental skills, you know, nothing crazy like can you do calculus or anything like that. For this one, this is more of an office-based analyst role. Okay, so if you wanted to take the exam, you would have your documentation with you, and you can come in here and roll right down to the very bottom where it says taking the exam. And if you launch it, it'll let you know you're going to go, and you hit continue. And it's going to say that, and I'm not going to go through because it's asking me to certify. But if you're taking the exam, you're certifying you're taking it for yourself. There's no interruption. Like you're making these promises here. And then you hit continue. And at that point, basically those same questions will be in radio buttons that you can click to identify your skill readiness and experience level. So once you do that, you'll immediately get a response once you're done, and it'll say you scored, congratulations. And that will show up in your CalCareer account. So when you get to CalCareers, you can come in here and you can go to exam assessments, and it'll tell you what you scored. So you can get on as many lists as you are eligible for.
Okay.
Okay, so there may be very many of those because you have a master's degree, right? And so sometimes they'll have to schedule exams for you, because like one time I took one for a bank monitor, and you had to go and do a big math test with everybody in a proctored exam. I don't know if they do that with COVID-19 now, but that's at least how they did it then. So now you're past the exam step. So first you identified a classification that you're interested in, that you fit. Then you took the exam. Now we would call you list eligible. Okay, you got over 70% based on that assessment. And so you come in here on an advanced job search, and you can search AGPA. Let's see if it'll come up with the acronym. There you go. So these, when I'm in this, I'm in the job search results. So these are actually all the jobs that use the classification Associate Governmental Program Analyst, as we like in the state use a lot of acronyms, we call it AGPA. Now it's important to note that if you did not have your bachelor's degree, they would also consider a staff service analyst job, which means that they would hire at the lower level and develop you into this role. So when you look here, we'll also consider classes. Usually what you're going to see is the promotional pattern, how one level lower, how you promote into this job. Now I want to point out to you on this column, this is the employer. So this is water, or State Water Resources Control Board. And there's the Parks and Rec. And there's the Board of Governors, which is the community college system. And there's Department of Transportation. See, notice that all these different departments are hiring the same classification, but look, the job is different. So it depends. Like, let's say I work for the California Community College Chancellor's Office, right? So let's look at that one for interest. So let's click here. The actual title is an AGPA in Student Services and Special Programs. So this Associate Governmental Program Analyst reports to a dean, and they help plan, develop, implement, and evaluate activities, functions, and standards related to program area and student services. This is an educational program. And so if you wanted to know more about exactly what that job looks like, you can click on the duty statement, and it will, oops, sorry, that's not what I wanted to do. We'll open this file here, my tray. And this is actually the duty statement of what this person would be hired to do. So you can go here and say, oh, what does that mean? Well, 40% of your time would be to support the program, 25% would be on special projects, and 20% on program and funding allocation, and then working with groups, listserv, and training. So each of these duty statements would be different for each of these organizations because they are different jobs. So what it looks like here is the same scale, right? And then it tells you how you would apply. So if you wanted to apply, one of the requirements for this job is that you complete what's called a statement of qualifications. So you're going to turn in your resume and maybe a cover letter, but the statement of qualifications is another attachment that they often ask for in these types of positions. And it's really a test to see if you can present information and write concisely. So you have to follow the instructions exactly. If it says typed in 12 font Arial, no more than 2 pages. If you do anything outside of that, it will be disqualified without even being read. So you have to really be attentive to detail on the statement of qualifications. They're not standard. They vary by the program area. And then this one gives you 3 questions that you have to respond to. One is your experience with financial aid. The other is your ability to do research. And the other is, have you ever implemented a large scale program or other special initiative? And so that's where you would give like examples in your career of when you've done work that aligns to these things as examples of your readiness for the position. So when you apply, you do apply online the same way to that application. And you just turn in your 678, which is the one that you filled out on your CalCareers account. And your resume would be uploaded, and your degree and school transcripts, and then that statement of qualifications we just mentioned. And then it says, go back to the special requirements section to make sure you read. So we roll up special requirements right there, SOQ information. So what are they looking for? They want to find someone who has strong analytical research and critical thinking skills. They're looking who can communicate confidently and courteously, oral presentation facilitation capacities. These are the type of things that are the things they're looking for in this job. So this is the contact for the Human Resources Department, Kirsten Leeper, and you can contact her if you had questions during the application process, or if you had any questions with the hiring unit would actually be the supervisor of that unit, student services. And then the EEO contact, of course, would be Tiffany if you had any concerns to that nature. So again, you have to complete SLQ. They are going to verify your education, and they're going to ask you to complete the Equal Opportunity Employer Questionnaire. So, wow, this job looks amazing. Let's apply. So you click apply. And then the first thing it wants to know is, did you do the eligibility step? And you said, oh, I have it. I took the exam, and I had 70%, and therefore I am eligible to apply. So I'm going to apply for this job. Now you'll notice it has my name in here, but your template that you built will be there, and you can just use it and it will automatically populate. Or if you want to start from scratch, you can use the blank application. And you just follow the steps to make sure that all the information and files that were required are uploaded. Kind of follow this breadcrumbing path up on top, and eventually you'll get to applications submitted, and then you'll get a confirmation that you applied for that job. And then it does take some time. The state is not as fast as the private sector in terms of hiring. You know, private sector might be able to hire you within a week if they like you and they're able to respond to you that quickly. But the state can take some time, a couple of weeks or longer, maybe a month, just because they have a window in which the application period is open. And then from there, once they get it, then they screen and score the candidates, and they rank the candidates, and then they plan the interviews and they schedule the interviews. And then after the interviews, they score and rank the interviews. And then they make a hiring decision, and then they call for offer. And then sometimes there's a background check or other requirements